This is Calling the Field Stands podcast. Jeff Mapis alongside Ryan Denchef, as always, here to deliver episode 5. We got Major League Playoffs, Major League Baseball playoffs getting underway tonight. College football progresses into Week 6, and player compensation discussions continue. We'll recap what we saw in NFL Week 4 and get into some Week 5. Ryan, what kind of beer we got here on tap tonight?
What up? Yeah, I think last episode you let it off. I forget what you said, something about slamming beers and talking sports or something like that. So to fill us in on the slamming beers part, picked up this Leatherhead IPA. Looks like it's Royal Docks Brewing Company, Canton, Ohio brewed, Canton's own. It's a Pro Football Hall of Fame edition. It's pretty good, actually. I've never even heard of this brewery or ever had this beer or anything of the like. Yeah, it's pretty good. Can't complain. Little pounder action, 16 ounces.
Tastes pretty good.
Yeah, man. So, hey, welcome back from, you're down in Columbus this weekend, right?
That's right.
Yeah. What went to get into any shenanigans or anything like that this weekend?
I did.
Yeah?
So I lived in Columbus for a little over 2 years when I first graduated from OU. And I lived with two of my best friends, and then our other best friend moved in right next door. We had a townhouse-style apartment. So randomly, we started this game night tradition.
Oh, yeah, you've told me about this in years past, so that was this weekend then.
Yep, so every Wednesday night, religiously, there for a little over a year while we all lived together. It was 2v2. Same partner every night. We picked a handful of drinking games and did like a best of 5 of each game every single Wednesday. And I moved to Cleveland then, so it kind of broke things up. But we're trying to do this 4 to 5 times a year, depending on it's best of 5 throughout the year. So meet a max of 5 times, and the winner, we got a trophy that we chug beers out of it if we win the day. We slam some beers out of the trophy.
Yeah, so. I know it's your college situation with your homies up there, but your boy needs an invite on one of these times. You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah,
let's go.
I have to do that.
I'm waiting on the invite.
So we play can jam. We play beer die, beer ball, and then we switch it over to 2v2 NFL Blitz on the N64.
What the fuck is a beer ball? Is that when you throw the ping pong balls off the beer cans or whatever?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a fun game.
Yeah.
That's a fun game. Beer die, I think, is my favorite of all the drinking games.
So we switched to standing beer die so that we can play it outside the whole time. It gets pretty I know at OU I only played sitting down.
On a little coffee table for those who don't know. Explain the rules of beer die because it is an interesting game. I had never ever even played it until, I don't know, probably sophomore year, college, junior year, something like that. It's a fun game.
It's really fun.
Explain the rules here.
So it's 2v2. You're on the same side of the table as your partner. You fill your cup up with beer, and you set it down in the corner of the table. You're kind of sitting at the corner of the table there, and the whole point of it is to throw your die above the opponent's head is kind of the rule, or everybody's head. You have to get it that high, and you have to throw it on the other half of the table. And if it hits the other half of the table and bounces off and hits the ground, meaning your opponents didn't catch it, that's a point. If they catch it, it's nothing. Game rolls on. Sink it in the cup. It's 2 points, and your opponents have to chug whatever beer they have in their cup.
Word. Yeah, always loved it because, growing up playing baseball and everything, I always had those quick hands on the beer die. I was always pretty good at snagging them before they dropped because that was another rule. Only one hand snags.
Only one hand.
All right, I was making sure you guys played that too because it's two-handed.
No trapping against your body, right. None of that shit. One hand. It gets pretty interesting standing up, as you can imagine.
How's that? So you have like what kind of table?
Just a normal plastic table that
gotcha.
you can get. The bounces are pretty good. You can start experimenting with launching it, you know what I mean? Like super high. Get crazy bounces, hard to catch, but
nice.
We also, since we do we switched it since we're meeting less. It's best of 7 now in each game.
Word.
So to quicken the pace a little bit, I kind of like this scoring style. It's still 1 point if your opponent doesn't catch it, But if you hit the cup and it bounces off, that's 2 points since you hit the cup, and then a make is 3 points. Just gotcha. You played 2-11, got to win by 2.
Nice.
So yeah, it was fun, man.
Well, hey, you gotta, like I said, next time you go down there, your boy's coming.
Start a tradition up here.
Yeah, well, that'd be cool too.
2 others.
And even if I'm an odd man out, I'll just play by myself, I guess. Just drink beers. No, but yeah, my weekend was pretty tame. Didn't do a whole lot. Did smoke some ribs. They were delicious. A little 3-hour slow cook action on the smoker. Had some people over for the Browns game, watched them kick some ass. So it was a fun Sunday. Saturday, pretty tame. So tame, I even fell asleep during the Buckeyes game because they were beating that ass so badly.
Yeah,
I fell asleep. They're up by like 4 touchdowns, and then I fell asleep, woke up, I'm like, oh shit. Guess I didn't miss much.
Right.
But yeah, I guess jumping into the sports conversation, I think the first thing we want to get into is real quickly the MLB playoffs. So we got some games as we're recording right now. Like we have mentioned in the past, we always try to get recording done on Tuesdays and hopefully post on Wednesdays now. I know we mentioned Thursdays before, but it is right now Tuesday night. No games have started yet, but we got some wild card action. Just in general, obviously by the time this gets posted, these wild card games are going to be done. Everything's going to be set for the divisional series and all that. Just what are your thoughts overall on what you see? Like, what are your outlooks on the MLB over the next few weeks and month or so? Who you got advancing? Who you got winning it all? What's your thought process on what's going down in the MLB?
To be honest, this entire season I haven't paid too close attention to the National League, but I always root for the Braves. Growing up, they had a lot of players that I was very fond of, so I'll be rooting for the Braves, but the Dodgers just seem
they're too good
to not pick. So they're my NL champion. Then flipping over to the AL, I obviously cannot root for the Twins. I will absolutely root for the evil empire.
Fuck that.
I'm New York Twins, over the Twins. Fuck the Twins. They're in the same division.
Dude,
can't do it.
Yankees. I cannot root for the Yankees. Yankees can kiss my ass. You know what I'm saying?
They've been winning for our entire lives. Another win won't kill me.
Fuck that. I hate the Yankees more than any team in baseball. So, much like you, I would like to see the Cardinals kind of do a little bit of damage in the National League, but I do ultimately think it's going to be the Dodgers as well. But you never know. I mean, anything can really. That's the thing about baseball. You get into the playoffs, anything can happen. We've seen wild card teams go on a run and win the World Series. So just the whole complexion of baseball, that's kind of really up for grabs. But I do ultimately think it's going to be Houston versus the Dodgers in a series, and Houston's probably going to win with 2 Cy Young candidates in Cole and Verlander. Added Greinke at the deadline. They got probably the MVP of the American League in Bregman, even though I think it should be Trout. But with his injury, it's probably going to be Bregman. And, just the rest of their lineup being stacked with Altuve, Correa, just the whole squad is just too fucking good. I think they're just going to clean house. But kind of, we mentioned it earlier. You had mentioned it to me, I should say. What is your overall, you kind of pose a question, what is the overall interest level in the MLB playoffs as a whole? Like, obviously, you and I are going to be much less interested because the Indians didn't make it for the first time in several years. But just what's your thoughts on just how the MLB has marketed the league, the playoffs, everything? What's your kind of feelings on these playoffs as they come up? Yeah.
As a sports fan in general, I'm definitely going to follow along a little bit, to see who's winning and whatnot. But as far as making it home from work and making sure I tune into the games, if I want to throw them on as background stuff, sure. But just doesn't seem like my excitement level is all that high for these playoffs. Homerism aside, obviously the Indians didn't make it, both of our team there. But yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there's as much excitement generated from the MLB to hype these playoff games up like there is other sports. And I don't know if it's an aspect of the MLB not marketing their star athletes as well as other sports.
That's definitely the case, I think.
I think it's a huge
Whether
huge
or not
part
that's
of
contributing to our lack of interest, because I think I'm on the same page as you so far as not being all that thrilled and excited for it. I mean, I think part of it is because the Indians aren't in, obviously, and another part of it is that the Browns are actually good, so my focus is really more towards the NFL, and the NFL is very interesting at the moment, just with the whole league. There's a lot of different teams that are kind of more relevant now, and a lot of teams that look like they're going to be in the mix to make some playoff pushes and things like that. You got the interesting components. I think part of what makes it interesting is a lot of these teams tanking is going to keep some teams more relevant. The teams that aren't tanking, they're going to get a couple wins against teams that don't give a fuck, so they're going to kind of stay more relevant towards the playoff push. So that might be a reason too. But I'm not really sure. Like I said, it might just be because the Indians aren't in it, and they have been for so many years in a row. But I kind of see where you're coming from. And also, I was just kind of thinking about this. I haven't even seen like any postseason baseball commercials.
No.
I haven't heard any talk about like, here comes the postseason. Obviously we heard about, the division and the Indians and are they going to make the playoffs? But there was no like, what's to come? All these series are on the horizon and all this kind of stuff. When in basketball and everything like that, it gets pumped at you on commercials and everybody's talking about on the different broadcasts, even nationally. It's like you said, the marketing of the MLB is definitely lacking. So I don't know if it's going to impact the ratings. Probably not. Who knows? Everybody says MLB interest level has gone down, but when they look at the ratings, it always seems like they're still, killing it. But I know for me, I'm going to be less interested, and I'm not really going to be watching it that much. And maybe a part of that also is Thursday Night Football is so big. They got college games and NFL games on Thursdays. You got all day Saturdays of football, all day Sunday football, Monday Night Football. So
I think that the scheduling aspect also hurts them because their playoff push, at the end of the season aligns with the start of the NFL and the start of college football. Like Everyone waits, that year gap where there's no football in our lives, and then boom, got football back. Even when you listen to
takes the wind out of the sails.
Even when you listen to radio shows and even shows that are televised, they're not pumping the MLB up either because it's all football talk. I mean, whether it's talking about individual star players of the league, talking about teams, like football is just pushed everywhere.
Football dominates America. Does. So
I almost wonder if it would help the MLB out if there was a way to have the playoffs at least start before the NFL season, whether it's cutting games down. I mean, that's
they'd have to cut the games. You couldn't move the season up because they're already.
It's a whole nother discussion, but I do think that is a factor that the MLB playoffs aren't hyped because they're overlapping with the NFL and college football. I mean, football is just.
But I think that might also just be a nature of baseball. Like it's just not. I mean, you look at the NBA playoffs, the NBA finals are going into May, and the finals are in June. Right at the start of baseball season, yet the NBA finals are pumped to everybody, and they're super popular, and everybody watches all the NBA games. So that doesn't really take a hit. Yet the MLB playoffs, I think, like you said, definitely does. So I don't know. Definitely should do something. But like I said, everybody talks about the ratings or the sport being less popular, but then you look at the ratings, and they seem to just keep on pumping. So
this is an interesting topic for me because I love the sport of baseball. I know you do as well. When I was younger, I could spit out lineups of multiple teams and, you just knew the name of every single stud player, up and comers, young players and the veterans. I looked forward to the All-Star game, seeing the collection of talent go head to head. So I don't know if it's an age thing where like now I've got my own life. We both work, we're both married, come home. Like I don't play as many video games anymore, certainly not baseball video games. Yeah. Whereas when growing up, play those video games, MVP baseball, I can spit out every single name, every single team.
You got to think about that too. The fact that, video games definitely feed, I think, a lot of the youth into, like you mentioned, like learning the players, learning the teams, understanding all the different ins and outs of everything. They don't even have an MLB baseball game for half of video game players if they have non-Sony. If they got Xbox, they don't have an MLB game. So that's a youth that would otherwise probably be playing the MLB games, learning the players, learning who the different guys are, because like you said, they're not marketed as much as MLB or NBA and NFL guys. And a lot of, I mean, like you mentioned, I'm playing Ken Griffey Jr. on a 64. That's how I knew a lot of them guys back in the day.
Right.
But now, kids don't have that. It's interesting. But you would think it would be the opposite because you have so much exposure on social media and, they're on TV every night of the week, and you got Sunday Night Baseball and all these national games and everything. There's more opportunities than ever to get exposure, yet I feel like there's less. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. And interestingly enough, there were theories out there that, we went through the steroid era where there weren't just home runs. There were like monstrous booming home runs. I mean, you had guys like Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, and Barry Bonds smacking the hell out of the ball. Home run numbers are up this year, like record numbers.
Sure.
And so are strikeout numbers. So you would think, hey, if you like watching the pitching aspect of the game, this year would have been good for you because strikeout numbers are up. If you like the long ball,
it's just
home
power
run
baseball now, really.
It is. So
power pitchers versus power batters.
I think
a lot of Ks, a lot of bombs.
I think it's an interesting topic that's very dynamic. You can't point to a couple things to describe it. There's a lot of factors at play here. So I'm really interested to see what the MLB does moving forward. You got to think they got to change somehow if they want to keep appealing to, especially like you pointed out, the youth. I mean, what's going to happen in 10 years when, people age? Are they going to have a young crowd still interested in baseball? Be interesting.
For sure.
The other problem with the sport, want to fit this in, the game of baseball also doesn't really glorify athletic skill as much as like the NBA, for example. Like the NBA, you can watch an elite athlete be more explosive, like go up and throw down a posterizing dunk. Whereas the MLB, you can't just go in and play baseball based on athleticism. Like, I'm not saying major league players aren't elite athletes. They are. But there's so much skill involved in trying to hit major league pitching at a high level. And, someone that played the game like yourself and myself can kind of understand the pitching aspect a little bit better, I think, and appreciate that more than just a common fan who's trying to watch sports for an entertainment value.
Sure.
Might not understand how nasty a backdoor slider is compared to a posterizing dunk thrown down by like LeBron James or, you know what I mean? So I don't know if that's a factor or not. It's just kind of something else I had thought of when comparing MLB to a sport like basketball or football, where
you see OBJ making these one-handed catches. You see guys making big tackles or, throwing or making rumbling runs where they run three guys over, stiff arm a guy to the ground, hurdle a dude. Like, you don't see that. You don't see guys hurdling second baseman sliding into second.
Right. I mean? Right. So just another interesting dynamic I've noticed. So anywho, we'll see what happens tonight in the first wild card game.
Yeah, I think there is a game. The NL game is tonight, and the AL game is tomorrow, I think.
Correct.
Unless I got those flipped. Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yep, tonight, 8 o'clock, TBS, Brewers, Nats, and then...
Rays, A's tomorrow.
Yep.
Word.
Yep. So, damn shame that the Tribe is not playing, man.
They had to overcome a lot to get there, and they failed to do so. Last 5 games straight. Last couple didn't really
close.
Matter, but yeah.
So is what it is. So anywho, why don't we move on here to college football? Get through week 5, entering into week 6, approaching that halfway point on the schedules, which is crazy. College football and NFL for that matter, once they start, it always seems like the season fly. It feels like the weeks fly by. You watch your game, your team Saturday, watch your team Sunday, start the work week, and here it is Tuesday night, already at hump day tomorrow, halfway through the week. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I got fucking jury duty tomorrow.
Yeah, that sucks.
The fuck is this shit? Midweek, fucking jury duty, 8 a.m. Like, I don't have enough shit to do at work already, and I got to get backed up by fucking jury duty. Like I think I mentioned this the other day. That's what you said. That's why I don't vote. Fuck, it making me reconsider voting. Fuck. But.
It's not that I don't vote always, but when I'm voting between a douche and a turd sandwich, I'm not going to fucking register.
Yeah,
it's just not going to happen.
I'm regretting it now because now I got fucking jury duty. Cuyahoga County. They said minimum 3 to 5 days. Kiss my ass, suck my balls for that. Fuck.
Hey, you get $27 a day, man.
Hey, $27 whole dollars when I have to buy lunch, and I guess I can park because I already have a parking pass. But fuck that, man. I would rather just get paid nothing. Honestly, it's like an insult. Here's $27 for your fucking 8 hours of work. Like fucking. Suck my balls. Anyway,
use it for food, I guess.
Yeah. So
or sports gambling.
Hey, speaking of, your boy won a little cheddar. We'll get into it a little bit. And I got some more money back on the old brownies, but we'll get into that when we get into the NFL talk. So, yeah, looking back, like you mentioned, on week 5 of the NCAA, not a whole lot really went down. That was all that surprising. Clemson almost falling to North Carolina. I think we could stir up some conversation here in a second on, whether they should be ranked in the top 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5, 6. Other than that, you had Virginia, Notre Dame. Notre Dame covered their 10.5 and won by 2 touchdowns. USC, Washington, USC, I think, was, I'm not going to say overrated. They were rightfully rated, but they really didn't. I don't think they were never going to finish the season in the top 25. So them being ranked 21, getting beat by Washington by 2 touchdowns is nothing surprising. Yeah, those were really the only games that really stood out or were anything special. The Buckeyes obviously rolled again. The likes of Alabama rolled. All the main teams other than Clemson really handled their business. So, what's your thoughts overall looking back, kind of what stood out to you from week 5 of college football?
Excuse me. I also want to point out Utah kind of bounced back and demolished Washington State. They took a bad loss to USC, and like you alluded to, USC deserved recognition for that win, but neither of us thought that was going to be sustained this year at all. And sure enough, they lose by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, well, I'm not really surprised, though, by Utah.
No, they're a good team still.
3 touchdowns or whatever it was. I know they rolled Mike Leach and the boys over there. What was the spread on that game, I wonder? But 5.5, Utah 5.5 favorites on Washington State.
Wow.
I wish I would have seen that. Before right now.
Right.
But yeah, what kind of stood out to you overall, just from the whole landscape of what went down? I guess let's just nothing really I think is real relevant. But other than, what are your thoughts on Clemson?
My thoughts on Clemson are, and this kind of plays into your big picture question here for the landscape of college football through last week. Trevor Lawrence hasn't really been what he was hyped up to be, in a sense, this year. There have been several other quarterbacks that have looked a little more impressive than Trevor Lawrence. Now, that doesn't mean that he still isn't a freak and isn't going to be an elite NFL prospect. That he is still very much an elite NFL prospect, in my opinion. But Clemson, very surprising to see them struggle with North Carolina. Although, even when they had Deshaun Watson, they struggled with a couple teams in their playoff runs in the past, even though the ACC is totally weak. So it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back from that tight game and how Trevor Lawrence kind of progresses through the season.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, he hasn't done great. Let's see, 5 picks already. He's had more picks so far this year than he did all of last season.
Right.
Which is interesting. He hasn't really played any talent. North Carolina's not a terrible team, but they're not great. They're not, even good, really. They're just a middling college football team. He's kind of surprised. We really talked him up in our pre-show in one of our first podcasts, talking about how he's going to be one of the highest, if not highest rated quarterbacks ever to enter an NFL draft. And I'm not going to change my opinion on that. He's still got everything that there is to need to be that guy, but he has not performed this year. And if I'm a Clemson fan, I mean, luckily their schedule's not very strong, but at the same time, they
well, because of that, they better not drop a game
if they
to
lose
some
a game,
shit game.
Yeah,
because the SEC has 3 teams that stand out right now. You've got Ohio State cruising, and I don't see any team in the Big Ten that's really going to challenge them in the regular season much. And even if they do, they have a conference championship game where they can face, a quality 2-loss opponent potentially, unlike Clemson. And then you got the Big 12 that has Oklahoma and Texas. So there are a lot of, and Notre Dame is still in the mix if they go 11-1. So yeah,
especially
Clemson
with that only loss being to Georgia. If Georgia kind of runs it or only has one loss, that's going to be a really big case for Notre Dame.
Exactly. So Clemson better not fuck around anymore with these ACC teams, because that'll definitely, it won't be in the past where they still squeak in.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the thing. I could have said this preseason, if Clemson loses one game, they're not getting in. There's plenty of other teams that I think would have, unless they just dominate all year and end up losing a close game in the conference championship or to one of their better teams that they have on the schedule. Certain circumstances, but if it's, a 1-loss Clemson that doesn't look that great versus a 1-loss Ohio State that lost to Wisconsin but then beat them in the Big Ten championship or lost the Big Ten championship for their 1 loss, like, I don't see how anybody's going to put Ohio State not in over Clemson. So Clemson better run it out, because they've already not looked great, and luckily their schedule is not very strong. So if they drop one game, they might be fucked. Rightfully so, because we've said that in the past. They've dominated in the past, but it's like same kind of situation. Their schedule is so weak that if they drop a game, it's hard to kind of make the argument that they should be in. Which actually kind of leads to the next conversation of kind of what do you think should be, how do you think the ranking system should be played out, or what are your thoughts on how the ranking system kind of is right now? Because I think always when we look at the end of the year, you see, okay, this team beat a ranked opponent in week 3. And they look at the rankings, and we kind of use that as the point of who's good, who's not good, who beat good teams, who didn't. What are your thoughts on just the overall, how the rankings are configured and how those kind of get constructed? Do you think there's any problem with it, or?
I think everyone thinks this. The preseason rankings are kind of pointless, and even the rankings in early weeks are kind of pointless. Or I guess I wish they didn't have them, because I think what you were about to allude to is sometimes those preseason rankings might affect the current rank. Like, would Clemson be ranked high with how we've seen them played had they not started the season ranked number 1 or number 2 or whatever they were? I think they were 1.
Okay, the preseason rankings are pointless to, a fan or somebody who has an opinion like, okay, they don't really matter, but do they matter? Because I think they kind of do, because like of what you just said, if there was no rankings, and let's say whenever the actual real college football rankings come out, I forget when that is. Do you know when that is?
Like week through 8 games or week 8 or something.
So let's say that's the first time we see any rankings. I think it would be a lot different if there was no preseason rank that had Clemson number 1. Like then now we have to justify why did Clemson, they haven't lost, but they dropped from 1 to 6 or whatever the case may be. Like, eyeball test of a season, because we actually had this kind of discussion of who should be number 1, and you were like, well, Alabama's the best team in the country on paper and in talent.
Right.
They should be number 1. And I said, well, they just got shellacked by Clemson. Clemson has a lot of returning talent. They're, they should be number 1. They've earned a number 1. But in the big scheme of things, it's irrelevant. It doesn't even really matter. But it kind of does at the same time, because it gets used in arguments of who should be ranked where and when and the whole thing. I don't know. I don't really like the whole ranking scheme and system. It's inevitable. But
I don't like it. I don't like it preseason. I don't really like it through the first 3 to 4 weeks, because you're still learning about teams. Like, I said it with Ohio State and how they looked in their first 2 games. Like, it was still a new head coach and a new starting QB, but they looked really good. I am going to acknowledge they look really good. And yeah, they, eyeball test versus 2 bad teams, they look like a top 5 top team, but I'm not ready to proclaim anyone that early. Then you see them continue that sort of dominance consistently through 4 to 5 games. And you're like, okay, this team is the real deal. And it's, I just threw out Ohio State for the sense that they had a new coach.
For the sense that they're the best team in the country.
A new quarterback. Yeah.
I get it.
So, no, even the playoff rankings.
I mean, it'd be hard for somebody to argue. I mean, but that's the thing. Like, does it really matter? No, because 4 teams get in. The BCS is gone now, so it doesn't really matter the 1 and 2 like it used to. But still, we're going to be arguing 5 and 6 and 4.
Yeah, there's always going to be arguments.
But, I mean, right now, it would be hard to argue if somebody said Ohio State should be number 1 in the country and someone said, no, Alabama should be. You really wouldn't have an argument. It's just opinion-based.
Correct.
Ohio State's looked really great. Alabama has a ton of talent. They've looked good, too. Either one could be number 1. Doesn't really matter. But it will ultimately just come down to kind of record, wins. But at the same time, what we classify as a good win or a not good win is very subjective, and a lot of it's based on these preseason and into early season rankings that, in the reality of everything, don't really matter.
Right, because then your argument is, you beat a team in week 4 that was ranked,
14.
number 12 or whatever. Then they finished the season unranked. Well, how good of a win was that?
Yeah,
do you go back to that ranking at the time, or how they finished the season?
But at the same time, they have one more loss, and now they're unranked because they lost to you. So you beat the team to kick them out of the top 25, which otherwise they wouldn't be. They would be top 25, but now you beat an unranked team because you beat them to kick them out of the top 25. I don't know. It's weird. The whole ranking system is weird.
It is kind of weird. I also don't like the playoff rankings, how early they come out, because they'll put a team 4, for example, okay? And
now we have to justify why a team should jump that number 4.
The whole jump, if that number 4 team continues to win and look, impressive, what's their metric for having the number 5 team or 6 team, even for that matter, jump up into the Final Four? It's kind of goofy.
I still think they should expand it a little bit, which is a whole discussion for another time. People have varying opinions on how many teams should make it to a playoff, what the playoff structure should be, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it kind of never ends. You say 4 to 6 or 8, then they're going to say, well, you're going to leave these 2 teams out or whatever. I think there is a point though there. And we've talked about it, even last week. There's probably 6 teams that kind of have separated themselves right now as the elites. And then there's more teams that are kind of up there in that echelon that might have a chance to squeak in and make some noise. So I think there is a number of teams for a playoff that, okay, these are realistically are the best teams that have a chance or deserve to push for that national championship. I think it's more than 4 right now. 8 is as most as I would ever anticipate or ever probably believe or agree that it should ever be. 6 is another argument. Giving a team a bye could be justifiable. But there is a point where, okay, you reach the limit of, another team could squeak in, but in reality, they're not really going to do anything and make a push for a national championship. But I think right now it is more than 4. So
yeah, especially it'd be interesting to see how this season finishes out. But I'm with you. 8 has to be the absolute max.
We got 3 teams from the SEC who are going to be pushing for chance for one.
Say LSU only loses to Alabama, so they go 11-1, and then say Alabama plays Georgia in the conference championship,
both undefeated.
Take your pick. Whoever wins, whoever loses.
Both of them are getting in. Now you're leaving LSU out with 1 loss, and their only loss. Let's say Alabama runs it out. Georgia's only loss is in the conference championship to Alabama. LSU's only loss is in the regular season to Alabama. So now you got 2 teams that have 1 loss. Their only loss is to Alabama, who's undefeated. Who are you going to leave out? How are you going to leave anybody out?
Yeah, and they all 3 have relatively difficult schedules.
Right, they all deserve it. Are you going to leave a conference champion 1-loss Big Ten team out for a non-conference champion 1-loss SEC team?
Yeah,
there's going to be a lot of arguments for that.
Yeah,
we've already seen it in the past. Not in the same.
Then the Big 12 say Oklahoma beats. Texas already has a loss this year.
Yeah. Let's say Texas beats an undefeated Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship. Yeah. Well, I guess they play each other, so one of them is going to end up having 2 losses.
That's where I was going with that. But Texas already lost to LSU this year.
So one of them will have 2 losses. I don't know. It gets convoluted and weird, and I think there is more deserving teams than 4 that have a chance. We've seen teams get left out We've seen teams that almost get left out win it all. So Alabama and Ohio State each really did that, where there was arguments of should they be in, and then they win it all.
Right.
So I think they're, with these close conversations and close arguments for like the final slot or two, those other teams that are getting arguably slotted in, we could expand it to a couple more teams at least. But I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this conversation way more in depth come week 11 of the regular season here, as some of these kind of things kind of come to shape out. Maybe it'll be easy 1, 2, 3, 4, but I have a hunch that it's not going to be that simple. So
it might not be this
we'll
year.
get into it a little bit, I'm sure, more. But I guess what's next on the old conversation topics? Actually, one thing that we had that's kind of really breaking news that happened earlier this week, yesterday, in fact, is the governor of California signing the bill that basically says college athletes are now, it's basically illegal to disallow them from playing in college football for profiting off their likeness. We got into this a couple weeks ago after the Tebow comments kind of hit, and then at the time the bill was just kind of in the works and in motion in California. Same thing with New York, but now is officially signed. Does not go into effect until 2023. And then you mentioned to me, I haven't seen this, but you mentioned about Florida pushing similar legislation that's going to be, they're pushing for it to be enacted as soon as next season. So let's get into that real quickly. Like I said, we did really get in and kind of express our opinions, a couple weeks ago on the podcast, but let's rehash it a little bit. Give us an update on what's going on in Florida and just break down real quickly the actual law that is now passed in California.
So basically, Florida is following suit with California on this bill that they want to pass. Although the only difference is California was basically like, hey, NCAA, you got until 2023 until this goes into effect to react, get your shit together. Then Florida wants to do something similar, but they want to push for 2020. So essentially, California is allowing collegiate athletes to hire an agent, benefit and profit off of their likeness. So, that means they can get hired by a car dealership to shoot a commercial. They can sign an autograph and get compensated for it. They can go hire an agent and have the agent help seek out endorsements and, any sort of compensation they can get. They can the agent can negotiate for them with jersey sales. That's also, if USC is going to sell a number 5 jersey and number 5 is a stud player on USC, then they should be able to make money off it. That's essentially what the bill is talking about. It gets a little convoluted because it's a state law, but the NCAA is the governing body over collegiate athletes. So kind of what we talked about is the state law prevents USC from ruling a player ineligible because they took compensation. The compensation they take is now legal per state law. So USC...
Well, actually, I mean, it's never been illegal for a player to go profit and get an endorsement from a car wash, but it is now illegal for the university to enact any suspension or otherwise sanctions against that person.
Right.
That's kind of weird.
If USC didn't rule that player ineligible or try to hide it or whatever, then the NCAA can step in and say, hey, you're violating our policies for you to be able to compete in collegiate sports. Here are your sanctions or punishment or whatever.
And that's where a lot of the bullshit comes in, where the NCAA has done a good job on their part of marketing their bullshit rules of, I mean, people almost think, like, they don't realize, I think a lot of times, that it's not illegal for a collegiate athlete to go sign a contract with a local car dealership to do a commercial. That's perfectly legal. They're an adult U.S. citizen profiting off their own business endeavors. But the NCAA is, like, people aren't realizing, like, that's always been legal. It's just they would just become ineligible under the NCAA.
Correct.
So that's where a lot of it kind of gets, people don't kind of think about, it's like, this has always been legal. It's just the NCAA fucking people over and screwing these collegiate athletes from rightfully earning money from their own being. So that's kind of where the whole thing kind of gets misled, because like I said, the NCAA has done a great job of making people think, oh, this is against the law almost. Like, they're not allowed. Well, fuck that. They're allowed. But now, like you said, it's going to be interesting to see how it all kind of shapes out, because the NCAA doesn't really have to follow the laws, but at the same time, they can just say, okay, these teams are no longer allowed to compete in our, sport conference, whatever you want to call it, association, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So leads to the discussion of, and kind of we broke down a little bit of, in the past, in the last episode, what happens to the NCAA. And I think the NCAA, we are soon going to see, and I really I'm really pleased that you brought up and informed me about Florida taking the stance of, this is going in next season. Because I think California's bill almost said, okay, let's negotiate, NCAA. Let's work something out that we can both be amicably acceptable of. We have a couple of years to kind of figure it out. And Florida's like, fuck that. This is going in now because this is the right thing to do. So I think this is going to make waves of the NCAA coming in and just, they're going to have no choice, because you have markets of California and Florida, and I know we talked about New York being in the mix as well.
Pennsylvania is also interested now as well. So that Midwest region, East Coast, now you're talking Florida, affects ACC and SEC territory, and obviously California is a freaking huge market. Yeah. And there are multiple teams in the Pac-12 in that state.
There's no way that TV contracts and TV, industries, whether it's Fox, ABC, all these companies that have contracts with the NCAA, there's no way they're going to allow entire states and some of their big time conferences and schools to be negated from what the NCAA's got going on. So there's multiple things that can happen. I think one, and which is most likely, this is going to force the hand of the NCAA to make it right. And easy solution is for the NCAA to come in and say, everything is status quo. Scholarships are the same. Universities run the exact same. Everything that is right now is the same, except we're not going to punish individuals for taking these endorsements. That's it. Only thing that needs to change is these guys can go and sign these car dealership commercials. They can get money from their jersey sales and things like that. That's it. If the other part of it is, the other option is if the NCAA wants to decide, okay, we're going to fight this and we're going to push back. All I think that's going to, if they want to take the hard line and say no bowl games for teams that their players benefit from financially playing football. If they want to take that, I think it's not going to be long until the NCAA is dismantled and overrun by a new organization that comes and basically takes all of the NCAA's rules, like I just mentioned, and says, oh, by the way, we'll overlook, you guys can do whatever they want. And then there's a new ACAA, American Collegiate Athletic Association. You know what I mean? So then all things status quo, except they're allowed to profit. But another question is, or not question, but argument of people who say they shouldn't get paid is, it's going to change how, what makes college football great, which is a lot of our conversation from a couple podcasts ago about Tebow's comments and all that. What are your comments on that argument? What's your rebuttal on people saying, you know what, it's going to change what college football is all about. College football is about schools, and it's about, pride for your university, and you're getting scholarships and getting an education. That should be enough. It's going to dismantle everything that college football stands for. Kind of, what's your rebuttal to that argument? What's your opinion on that?
My rebuttal is, the game has changed. It is $1 billion industry now. Okay. It wasn't always like that. I also think that the education value of a scholarship might not be quite the same as it was, decades ago.
Big overlooked point right there.
It is. I mean, it's just, I still want that option to be out there for players. Yeah. Hey, go get a scholarship. But at the same time, these athletes, when they sign their scholarship, it's football and school 24/7. Some of them don't even have time to have, a job on the side to earn some cash.
Bro, they're not even allowed to earn some cash on the side.
No, they can't. If they're employed, like Maurice Hurst was an Uber driver while he was at Michigan his senior year.
There are heavy restrictions on your quote employment on what you're permitted to.
Yeah, I mean, if it could blow up if you. No, I know where you're gonna go with it.
You're a marketing associate for our, whatever, and we're gonna pay you a salary of
right.
We'll pay you hourly. You're not a salaried employee. We're just gonna give you $600 an hour,
which is a whole nother fucked up side, right? Like,
so there's plenty of restrictions on. They're not. A lot of times they're not even allowed to go get side jobs. They're not even allowed to work on the side. Whether or not they have time to do it is another argument.
I was just going to say, even if they have time to do it, I mean, workout sessions, they still got to go to class, they got to go to practice, they got to study their own playbook, they got to study film. I mean, it's never ending. So even with other smaller sports like swim, my wife's cousin was a swimmer for a really small school in Ohio, but she got a scholarship for it. And guess what? Her life was hitting the books and practicing and working out. Yeah. I mean, every single day. I mean,
yeah. Speaking of that, I took a sports writing class in college. I was a journalism major, which, like you mentioned, the value of a college degree. Yes, I'm very fortunate that I have a college degree. I'm not doing journalism. I'm in marketing now. But I mean, I'm not going to negate that my college degree didn't afford me the opportunity to do marketing, but that's neither. I'm not going to overlook. But my point is, I took this sports writing class, so there was some athletes, there was some other journalism majors, and this one girl in my class I forget what her sport was. She was like cross country or something like that, and she told a story about how her coaches were advising her to take these certain easier classes because it would help her be able to dedicate more time to her athletic ventures. And she said, fuck that, I'm going to take physics or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. But they were telling her, don't take physics, take this class because it's going to basically help you be more successful on the whatever. I'd like to say, I forget. I think it was like cross country.
No, there are limitations academically too with, I can speak to Michigan specifically. Deshaun Hand, 5-star defensive end, loved Michigan. It was in the Brady Hoke era, so things kind of fell apart. Bama swooped in and got him, but one aspect of his recruitment was he wanted to be a civil engineer. And, of course, Alabama, they have an engineering program, and they told him, oh, yeah, we can get you tutors. We can make this work with your class schedule. I don't know if he ended up going into that major or not, but at Michigan, they straight up told him, no, you will not be able to succeed. Now, Michigan is, they hold themselves as a high-level academic institution, which they are. They rank high as a public university. But because of that, the athletes that they get, they straight up tell them, no, you're not going to be successful in our engineering program and playing a sport.
The time it takes.
So you got to pick one. Right. You play a sport and an easy major, or you take the major and don't fuck with the sport. You know what I mean? Jordan Lewis, really good cornerback for Michigan, tweeted something recently along with the same topic. Like there were limitations to academic classes that he could take because basically he was an athlete and he didn't have time for some of them. And they straight up told him, you're not going to be successful in those because you got to balance so much time with athletics. So
I mean, that's a whole part of it. And not to get off a tangent on, whether or not or how valuable a college scholarship while you play football at one of these top universities really is, which like we kind of even could get into even more is a whole conversation in its own right. But just the whole conversation of how college football will be, denigrated because these people are getting paid. If the whole landscape is leveled and everybody's allowed to get paid, we're going to see, these top universities are going to get the most money, so they get the best. Yeah, that already happens. This is what we're seeing right now. There's nothing going to be different.
Nothing will be different.
American citizens are going to get to do what they love to do what they're good at, do what they're able to profit off of, and actually get paid for it.
Right. There's, like I started with, it's $1 billion industry now. With the lucrative TV deals, like it is in part of the entertainment industry. If you allow, this is the first step, right, in allowing player compensation. Kind of the easiest step is allowing them to benefit off their own name and likeness. Like, why
easy solution?
Why go to, a stud player for Ohio State and tell them, hey, you have a bunch of marginal revenue, but sorry, you don't get to see any of that. I know you have this marginal revenue value, but you get to see nothing from that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fucked up. And I saw another argument that, the post was, oh, I feel bad for offensive linemen. They're not going to get the deals and blah, blah, blah. Look, the stud players are going to get the better deal,
right,
just like in professional sports, okay? The guys with the personality to market and the guys that are talented, they're getting the lucrative contracts to begin with, and two, they're getting the most endorsement deals. It's going to be no different, really, in college football, especially, things might get crazy the first year or second year. I don't know, but sure, it'll all level out.
Definitely will all level out.
It'll all level out, and offensive linemen, they can still get theirs.
Oh, they'll get theirs.
Go to local steakhouse. Are you kidding me?
Come on.
So,
they'll get theirs plenty. Look what Laramie Tunsil just drew from, a trade value in the NFL. Nobody's overlooking the value of offensive linemen.
Yeah, I mean,
will the right guard for Ohio State make as much as, Justin Fields? No,
but that's
he
going to
also
happen.
doesn't make as much as Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or
right.
whomever.
That's going to happen. I mean, even if they both make it in professional sports,
and I think that
what it is.
The league of college football is going to be the same. The fandom is still going to be there. There's not going to be any all of a sudden disparity of talent and everyone's going to one school or another and they just dominate for 15 years. I don't really think anything in any landscape is going to change. A lot of these guys are getting paid under the table and behind closed doors anyways. There's a lot of components that go into why a guy goes to a certain school, whether it is, like you said, some of that education, whether it is because it's closer to home, whether it is because they have the program that has been sustained to show NFL talent. There's a lot of things. All these different schools that are currently getting the best talent are going to continue to get the best talent, and the money's going to get spread around. Like you said, it might be crazy for a year as kind of things get settled in and sorted out, but it'll all work out. No one's going to just all of a sudden start throwing millions of dollars at these collegiate athletes. That's terrible investment.
That's not going to. Yeah,
no
exactly.
one is going to do that.
It's not going to happen.
So I don't think anything would change. It's just these. I mean, I say athletes, but at the same time, they're just Americans, adult U.S. citizens. They're going to get paid for being good at what they're good at. I get paid for doing what I do. You get paid to be an engineer. This guy's going to get paid to be a football player.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Well, the thing is, if I were still a student and I came up with a business idea or something like that,
yeah.
But say, we were doing a podcast during school and our names kind of got popular because of that, because we were say the podcast was for
Let's
OU.
Say we're the most hilarious people of all time.
But say it was for OU. They were paying us to do this podcast and we made it big time. But then we got deals on the side, endorsement deals to do whatever it may be for advertisements. We would get that money.
Sure.
It's the same thing with collegiate athletes.
Just the OU. The NCAA is just a corrupt scam of an organization that has gotten away with it for so long. And that's another point of it real quickly before we move on. The thing that kind of doesn't make sense to me is, it's not going to cost the NCAA any money. It's not going to cost these universities any money. Everything's going to be the same. It's just the players are going to get paid. Nothing's going to change. It's not like the college football is going to go down in value or less people are going to watch because the players get paid. That makes no sense.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
They want control. Gene Smith.
But control of what though? Why? What
I don't
value
know.
does
I don't
the
know.
control gain? That's what makes
Gene
sense.
Smith, AD of Ohio State. He's on the college football playoff committee, I believe, and he's also on another committee with the NCAA because he touched on this topic today. And all he kept going back to was how they can regulate it. How can we regulate this? How can we regulate this? Then he even gave, Ohio State the example. There's some app he brought up that you can get exposure with, and people can kind of like donate money to. I forget what it's called. But anywho, his example was the alumni base for Ohio State is gigantic.
Right.
Say everyone gives this player, $100, it ends up being $500,000. It's okay. So he gets $500,000.
Good for him.
So
bro.
A bunch of random fucking people decided to give him $100. Ryan, if a bunch of people wanted to give me $100, I'm gonna take that shit.
Right. Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. I don't understand what the big deal is.
Why are we trying to keep, like I said, adult citizens of this country from earning what is theirs?
Well, and the other side of that too is his whole point was, they want a level playing field. They don't want competitive advantages. Bro, Ohio State, Alabama, these blue blood programs, when they have this, when they have an elite coach that is sending people to the NFL, winning titles, they're going to get theirs. They're going to get more talent than fucking Purdue.
What's a competitive disadvantage? Certain universities paying their head coaches $8 million or $5 million to be the head coach. Oh, It's a competitive disadvantage that Alabama can pay Nick Saban $7 million, whereas Central Alabama can only pay their head coach $300,000. Oh,
exactly.
Competitive disadvantage. Yeah, no fucking shit. They're Alabama.
They're already
Ohio
there.
State.
It's not going on.
You know what I mean?
The alumni bases, we can't control, the length of time how these universities got to where they're at.
It is what it is.
Michigan, Ohio State, they have a huge alumni bases.
For them.
And they got deep fucking pockets.
And you know how you continue to earn money as an NCAA is finding ways to keep everybody interested, keep the league together, keep the NCAA together, allow the schools to get paid. Because there's going to be, we're at the point, like I said, now circling back to our original point, we're at the point where it's going to force the NCAA's hand. If you still want an NCAA and you still want the fandom to be what it is, you're going to have to give in, because these schools will find another outlet. They'll, like I said, an ACAA will form, and the NCAA, everybody will be stuck with their thumbs up their asses, and we'll be like, oh fuck, we really dropped the ball on that and missed the boat, because they're still doing it, and now everybody's over there. So it's only a matter of time till it all kind of levels out and evens itself out. It always does.
And I think they will. I think they'll find a solution, although they better not take their time, because it already looks reactive when they could have been proactive. But there's so much money at stake.
Right.
And once now it's starting to it hasn't snowballed quite yet. I'm not going to use that term, but it's starting to, man. It's starting to develop,
which is great.
Get the ball rolling. You got multiple states, California and Florida, the two huge markets that really stand out. New York.
I said, the TV deals aren't going to let this go and just miss out on certain markets being profitable.
The individual universities aren't either.
Exactly.
So, especially like you said, they're not out anything right now. It's only, allowing the players to benefit, off of their likeness, outsiders coming in saying, hey, I want you to be in my commercial for $10,000. Here's $10,000. Will you do it? And they're going to say, fuck yeah. Give me that check.
Yep. It's going to be interesting to see how this kind of shapes out, especially with I'm glad Florida is pushing the bill, and hopefully other states kind of follow suit, because I was excited to see California take the lead and make this happen, which, I mean, to still give them a lot of credit for getting the ball rolling, but the fact that they put the 2023 clause in there kind of sucked the wind out of it a little bit for me, because a lot of shit can go down in the next few years and a lot of negotiations and all this kind of that. But the fact that Florida's like, this is happening in a few months. We're implementing this today.
Right.
That's going to get some shit into motion. Like I said a couple weeks ago, California is going to get people's asses into gear, and it has. And we're seeing, like you said, Florida, PA.
And guess what? You get two states like that with,
right,
prominent football programs. Now look at a state like Alabama and Ohio.
Texas, Alabama, Ohio.
Guess who the highest paid state employees were last year? Like Ohio, for example.
Right.
Urban Meyer.
Right. Nick Saban, highest paid public employee of the entire state.
Who do you think is extremely important in there's a lot of state pride
Oh, yeah.
in that collegiate program. Like they're going to get on board
for
now
sure.
now that this thing is rolling. So
I'm
interesting,
excited.
man. I'm
they
excited.
Deserve it. These kids deserve it. They deserve to get what's come to them. If someone's willing to pay them money to do whatever they want to do, that's another thing. Just real quickly, anybody, whether it's a piece of artwork painted by some dude we've never heard of or some guy playing football, anything is worth what someone is willing to pay. And the fact that you're saying someone is willing to pay you this, but you're not allowed to receive it, is the most un-American thing I've ever heard in my entire life. So fuck the NCAA. I'm ready to see this shit go forward and ready to see these kids earn what they rightfully have coming to them. So, I think that's pretty much our conversation on that. We'll continue to get on this conversation more so in the coming weeks, I'm sure, as some of these other states kind of keep kicking into gear and doing their own thing as well. Florida in particular is going to have my eye. You just taught me that and informed me about that today. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting into that and learning about what's going on there. It's going to be a conversation in the national media and otherwise for weeks to come, months to come, unless something drastic happens and gets solved in the soon, which is definitely not going to happen. So
they drag their feet.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of breaking this down even more so, in the coming months as more progress and news breaks. But before we wrap this podcast up, let's really touch quickly on the NFL week, 4, and then into week 5. And then again, as we did last week, we're going to do a Browns breakdown where we talk just Browns. So on this podcast, we're going to keep it a little bit light on our talk about our favorite team, the Browns. Kicked some ass last week. Got a big game Monday night, national audience again for the third time in 5 weeks, coming up this Monday, So real quickly, to recap the NFL, what is something that stood out to you that told you something about certain teams heading into, quarter of the season now, which pretty wild.
Yeah.
So, what do you see from week 4?
I'm going to go right to the primetime game, Dallas versus the Saints. The Saints getting that win. We had just talked about, Drew Brees going down and how with Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Brees isn't out for the season. He's coming back. So, all they needed to do with Teddy Bridgewater is kind of weather the storm a little bit before Drew Brees comes back and really get into that playoff push. Well, they've got a primetime game against Dallas, whose offense under new OC Kellen Moore looked pretty damn good through 3 weeks. Dak Prescott looked much improved, and they go in there sloppy, but hey,
points.
12-10, man. They got the win with Teddy Bridgewater, no Drew Brees. It's a pretty big win in the grand scheme of
Dallas
things.
comes in with that high-powered offense. Zeke Elliott scores 10 points. The Saints D really stepped up. There's a lot of headlines about certain guys making comments. A lot of Buckeyes in that game, which was pretty cool to see. I think 5 starters, 2 on the Saints, 2 on the Cowboys, 3 on the Saints, which is pretty cool. That was a cool game. 12-10, I think was the final.
Yep.
A lot less high scoring than I anticipated coming into that week. But like you mentioned, dude, Teddy Bridgewater, all he's got to do, hold the fort down. It's kind of, I think, the motto for him. Let's hold the fort down. And this dude 2-0. It looked pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's, all world or anything like that, but we
get that fucking job done.
Like I said, and like we talked about last podcast, if they just kind of, stick around 500 while Drew Brees is out, they got a great chance to make the playoff. I mean, you can get in the playoffs at 9-7. So you flirt around 500, get Drew Brees back, weather the storm while he's out. I like the Saints. They were my Super Bowl pick coming out of the NFC. They got a lot of talent. Unfortunately, they've got several Buckeyes on that team, but they are good. I will admit that.
Another game that stood out to me was the Bills-Pats. We talked about having conversations before about the Pats might not lose a game, and they almost lost to the fucking Bills, whose starting quarterback got knocked out midway through the game.
Yep.
So do you think that game and that performance, which had Tom Brady with a 46 passer rating and passed for 150 yards, 46 passer rating, no touchdowns, 1 pick, still got the win. Do you kind of change your opinion on what the Pats are capable of or who they are? Did that game change anything for you, or do you think it was just kind of a slow week for them?
Yeah, I think teams have slow weeks. It's a long season. It's going to happen. Through 3 games, you have the benefit of switching up scheme, changing up what has been on film for the past couple of years if you're a long tenured head coach. So you got element of that. I still think the Patriots are going to be one of the best teams in the AFC. Sure. If anything, I picked the Bills last week as one of the surprise teams to come out 3-0, and with Josh Allen going down in that game, and they still, even up to that point, they had put up a pretty damn good fight. Doing some reading online, the Bills
their defense is legit, bro.
Yeah, their team is a well coached team. So hey, maybe the Bills aren't that bad this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think their defense is honestly legitimate. We talked about Josh Allen. Him entering the NFL draft, I didn't have any high hopes, or not hopes is the wrong word, high expectations of him being anything special. He's played well enough to win some games and well enough to be a playoff team, in my opinion. I don't know. I think I slept on the Bills a little bit, and I think they're going to make a push. I mean, their division is atrocious. So they have a good chance at the wild card, at least, knowing that they have a couple easy wins against the Dolphins and the Jets.
They're one of those fringe, 500 could get to 9 wins, maybe team that you don't want to sleep on when you play them because they can beat you on any given week. So
yeah,
it's kind of what I think about the Bills. It was just, one of those games where it's like, holy shit, the Bills started 3-0. Now they're taking it toe-to-toe with the Patriots, who have looked really awesome, which segues into the Lions, man. Can't believe we're saying this about the Lions, but
we can stop that conversation.
Dude, 34-30 against the Lions.
Let's have the conversation, but we can stop the hype on the Lions, I think.
Mahomes game-winning drive.
Pat Mahomes.
My God.
Dude, the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. I don't think. I mean, they were a D Ford lining up in the neutral zone away last year from going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to go to. Their defense still has plenty of holes, but Pat Mahomes.
When you can put up points, I mean.
Pat Mahomes, Jesus, this motherfucker is so fucking good. It's stupid. It's stupid how good this dude is. And they have so much talent. They don't even have their best receiver back yet. I mean, the Lions, like I said, it was still the Lions. Let's not get ahead of ourselves and start thinking that the Lions.
I'm not trying to hype up the Lions. However, they have not looked quite as shitty as the Lions.
But it was one game-winning drive stop from Pat Mahomes away from beating the fucking Chiefs. So maybe I'll be
under a minute.
Maybe I'll be eating my words a little bit in a few weeks if the Lions rattle off a couple more wins. But that was a pretty cool game. I didn't really see a lot of it. I think that was the same time going on as the Browns. Obviously, that garnered my attention more so. But I saw some highlights and
the Travis Kelce
dude
lateral was just an insane play, man. I mean, that was one of the best football plays you'll ever see.
Like if you're a Lions fan, you're just like, how the fuck do you stop this? Like,
right.
First off, the throw, but that play was unbelievable in its own right. With Kelce goes up, snags it, great catch. Fucking mid-fall, flips it to the homie underneath. What gets overlooked is the throw that Pat Mahomes actually made in that,
right.
Kind of moving to his right, across his body, delivers a strike. Fucking Kelce catches it, flips it down, and they gain another 20 yards.
I love watching the slow-mo. Watching Kelce go up, catches the ball. You can see it just turning in his head like, I'm going to catch this fucking ball right here.
And I'm going to flip it to this motherfucker.
Pitch it to my homie right here because I'm about to get tackled. To make that Sports Center
he was
top
flipping
10.
it before he even caught the fucking ball.
For sure, dude.
Midair, he's like, look at this wide open catch right here.
He saw his teammate running right toward him, totally uncovered. Knew where his defender.
He probably saw the other guy and was like, oh, he should throw it to him. Oh shit, it's coming to me. Well, I'll flip it to him.
Yeah.
crazy.
No, it's cool, man.
They're fucking good, man. The Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl unless something crazy happens like the Browns run it. But floating back to the Patriots, I don't know. I think I see some weaknesses in the Patriots. I mean, when you look at them on paper, they're not really supposed to be the greatest team. And but just the fact that they have Brady and Belichick, you know, a lot of people say this a lot of times every year. Oh, Brady's getting up there in age. He's going to eventually degrade or regress a little bit. He's going to slow down.
Which you did see a little bit last year, especially toward the end.
So I think this Patriots almost lost to the Bills, and just the way that it went down, I don't think it should be overlooked because I don't think the Patriots are going to be this unstoppable force that everybody's kind of projecting them to be. They're, number one in all the power rankings. If you look them up right now, I mean, you can't really argue that. They won the Super Bowl and are 4-0. But at the same time, I just have a feeling they're going to get beat in a game that, whether it's in the playoffs or otherwise, that is going to cost them the season. And some of these teams with some of these younger quarterbacks, it's going to kind of turning of the tide, which, like I said, a lot of guys have been saying that for the last couple of years of Brady's old, the Pats are old, they don't have a lot of, star talent, turning of the tide, but it never happens. But eventually it's going to happen. Father Time is undefeated, and I think it's about that time where I think we saw a little bit of what the Patriots, their vulnerability a little bit.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying.
I think it's the Chiefs' division to lose at this point.
I still think it comes down to those two teams, though.
Yeah.
Chiefs,
I think Patriots, it's the Chiefs' division to lose.
When you have a quarterback like Mahomes and Andy Reid has it fucking going on with that offense, I mean, you already mentioned it. You lose Kareem Hunt last year.
Yeah.
2, so now you're getting it done with running back by committee. Which is a huge downgrade compared to Kareem Hunt. Then you lose Tyreek Hill this year, and that offense is still putting up numbers. So
yeah.
But we got to hit on our own team just a little bit. I know we're gonna break out that episode, but another huge game.
Honestly, probably the biggest win of any team this week was the Browns.
For sure this week. For sure. I mean, it was a division game. Winner of the game takes clear first in the division.
I mean, that was so huge for the Browns because they're facing 1-3, which I don't know the statistics offhand, but I guarantee the 1-3 teams that make the playoffs is a very low percentage.
I'm sure it's
the difference between 1-3 and 2-2. So you're facing 1-3 or leading the division on the road against a team that you have been dominated against for 20 years. To go in there and fucking house dog the Ravens was unbelievable. Easily the biggest win of the season for the Browns. Easily the biggest win of the week. The score as they slaughtered them on the in the score, the one I think by 15. Not even really indicative of the actual reality of what happened. They kicked their ass even more so. Lamar Jackson got a 50-yard touchdown with seconds to go, more or less, in an irrelevant garbage time touchdown that made it a little bit closer on the stat sheet than it really mattered or really looked like in reality. But the Browns statement game, we talked about it last week, statement game upcoming and a statement win by the Browns. Real quick before we, break out into our separate episode, breaking down the Browns specifically alone, real quick for this podcast, what is your reaction of the Browns-Ravens game? And really that was the biggest game so far as the landscape of the NFL is concerned at this moment. That was the biggest game of the week. Real quick analysis and reaction to that game, Browns-Ravens.
The Browns defense really continues to impress. That front four is elite. I think you're seeing some depth on this defense that maybe we were a little bit concerned about coming into this year.
Most definitely.
Mitchell and Curry step in for, Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams going down. Whitehead at safety, forced a fumble and got a pick.
Great game by Whitehead.
So, I think we were in love with our starters on both sides of the ball, but a little bit, worried about our depth.
Oh, most definitely.
Dude, our starting secondary has been out for 2 straight weeks, and our defense has fucking brought it.
You mentioned him, TJ Carey. It's because he's a Bobcat. OU Bobcat. Let's go.
OU. So, but, and then, the biggest thing we've all been wanting to see, not just Browns fans, but, the common fan that either got on board with the Browns or have been, ripping Baker and this offense. This offense through 3 weeks had not looked like the offense we saw last year. That's just a
Definitely
fact.
Not.
Baker and Freddie were not what they looked like last year. On Sunday, you saw Baker step up, put up good numbers, make good decisions, run the offense. Nick Chubb, fucking beast. We finally allowed him to, I texted you and your brother, let Nick Chubb win you games. He is a baller. And then, of course, Jarvis Landry, my goodness.
Juice. Yeah, 165, 3 tuds for Chubb, including that 88-yard toss play, which, bro, I talk so much shit about toss. I still, regardless of that,
I know.
Play,
I have some friends that
toss,
hate
bro.
the toss play too.
NFL athletes or NFL defensive players are too athletic for toss to really work in general, and they keep running toss, and I always yell at TV. But
not when you have Greg Williams sprinting his ass off to get a backside block. If you see the replay, watch Williams. He fucking sprints his ass over and hits a second level block on the backside to release Nick Chubb.
Greg Robinson.
There you go. I said Williams. Robinson.
It also helps that Tony Jefferson takes himself out of the play.
Oh my God!
What was he doing? Impeccable fashion.
That was awesome.
Anybody who's listening to this, go watch that replay and watch the cat with the white sleeves, Tony Jefferson. One of the worst defensive plays. I don't even know what he was thinking. Like I don't know.
I don't know what he saw.
I almost think he didn't want to get hit in that play, so he's like, I'm going to take this play off, and he gets housed for an 88-yarder. But but Juice, I think I texted you and some other buddies, kind of a game plan of what the Browns need to do to get the win. It was feed Chubb, run some RPO, and let Juice feast out of the slot, and that's pretty much what we saw. 167 yards from Juice on 8 catches. Unfortunately, he had that concussion. Hopefully, he's going to be back this upcoming week. He was a big part of that game. OBJ really didn't do anything on the stat sheet, but he was another big part of the game, drawing double teams, drawing multiple coverages, having the focus of the offense towards him, open some things up for other people. The offense looked fucking awesome. The offensive line looked great. And I'm going to get into this a little bit in our Browns breakdown, but I really shredded the offensive line after the Rams game on our podcast, but after watching the film, I didn't get a chance to watch it until after we recorded the podcast. But after really breaking it down and looking at it a little bit closer, the offensive line really didn't play that badly against the Rams. Some things just didn't go our way. Execution was off. Some certain plays got missed, or otherwise, somebody fucked up, or some different shit happened. The offensive line actually didn't play that terribly, but they really stepped up this week, clearing some holes. I love the pulling action from the offensive line. There was a lot of pull blocks, a lot of motion from the offensive linemen getting out in front, running across field, opening some lanes, opening some holes. I was really impressed by the offense. And like you said, the defense just continues to dominate as we kind of predicted preseason. This offensive line is for fucking real, and Myles Garrett is next level. I think they're going to continue to dominate all season.
You said offensive line.
Defensive line, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. Anyways, that's a good segue, I think, to wrap it up. Not really a whole lot else that went down in the NFL that was really of note. Obviously, there were some games that were kind of surprising, like the Rams losing to the Buccaneers by double digits, but nothing really that stood out. We'll get into more NFL talk this upcoming week. Week 5, I guess it is now. Browns playing Monday night. Looking forward to that. Primetime game. National coverage again for the 3rd time in 5 weeks. Looking forward to that. So as we kind of wrap this up, Jeff, it's been a great pleasure.
As always, man.
Yes, sir. We'll see you next week. Peace.